this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Darien Parks and Recreation Commission, Wednesday, June 19th at the Wheat Beach Paddle Hut. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes of May 15th. Anybody have any comments or changes? I surprised myself and didn't have any, but then I remembered that Jamie wasn't there. Pam didn't send them to me before, send me to me. She went on vacation, said, could you clean these up? And I sent them in. So I'm like, that's why I didn't have any comments.
There you go. Did make me feel better. I was like, seriously, the one time that Pam doesn't.
Not the one time.
Okay, so anything?
I didn't see anything.
Everybody's happy? Everybody's happy. I'll take a motion. Motion? Mary Louise, second? Lucy? Okay. All in favor? Okay. Yes. Oh. I think she can still make a motion. Right. That's right. Okay. Great. Next on the agenda, we are going to discuss and take action on the use of Dillard Park by the Darien High School Athletics. We do have Chris, last name?
Manfredonia.
Thank you for doing that. Who is the athletic director for the town or for the high school?
The high school.
For the high school, okay. Just to provide a little bit of background and context, the commission knows that we've been working with the Darien Athletic Foundation over the past 6 to 8 months, give or take, when they reached out to the Parks and Recreation Commission along with the Board of Education to propose the development of a cross-country running path that will incorporate both the high school property and Dillard. We always call it the Dillard property, but we start calling it Dillard Park because it is the park. And the Athletic Foundation has done an amazing job of shepherding this project through all of the town bodies that needed to be engaged and vote on it. And at this time, we do have all of the approvals that are needed from the various town bodies to commence with this project, which is really very exciting. The last little tidbit that this commission needs to deal with is to effectively receive the request from the Board of Education through the athletic department to use the property. And I did ask them to articulate any restrictions that they would be asking us to impose on the use of the property, really specific to the needs of the student athletes. So I have an email that I received from Dr. Langdon. I can touch, do you want to just touch
Sure,
on
if you want to
that?
just read it, I'd be happy to answer any questions you and the board have.
Okay, so the request that came from the athletic department, Dr. Langdon, and the Board of Ed was that the entire running path, including the Dillard property portion of the path, needs to be closed to the public during scheduled track practices and track running events. And then maybe you can talk about what those hours are. The high school portion of the running path does not affect us, needs to be closed to the public when the school is in session during the school year and during summer school. The Athletic Foundation shall install a hinged and substantial gate between the Dillard property and the Darien High School property as promised. Signage needs to be posted on the running path, both on the Darien High School property and the Dillard property, that A, prohibits the walking of dogs on the running path at all times, and B, indicates the times when the running path is not available for use by the public. So we're going to talk about those hours. Authority needs to be provided to permit the police department to remove from the property any trespassers during the times listed on the signs when they're not permitted to use the path. I think that's covered in our rules generally. And then I did have a little bit of follow-up with Dr. Langdon today. And he did indicate that there was hope that in addition to the sporting and sort of official practices, the cross-country team, that student athletes might be using the track during other types of the year for training. So I think those are some of the things we'll really want to understand tonight in terms of what you're looking for. So thank you for being here.
Of course. So thank you to the Commission for having me here today. We'd like to formally make the request to allow the high school to use the Diddle property as part of its running path, which is being graciously donated to us by the DAF. We thank them for that. The running path would serve a great number of our student athletes at the high school, specifically our cross-country and track students. The path would allow the high school boys and girls cross-country teams to host a home cross-country meet, which they have not done in my tenure there. I don't know when the last time they had one here yet. We typically go on the road for all of our meets, and so by allowing this gift to take place, would allow the high school teams, both boys and girls, to host one, perhaps two meets a year, which would of course include use of the Diddle property. While cross-country is a fall sport, there would perhaps be times early in the winter season, in December, when the weather has not turned quite so nasty, for the indoor track teams to perhaps do some training on that path, as well in the spring. I would foresee it not being as, that piece of property being as heavily utilized as I would see it as being in the fall, but there would be times in both the winter and spring where it may be used for training purposes as well. No competitions, just training purposes. The times that you had asked about in the opening monologue, typically school gets out at 2:20, practice starting between 2:30 and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They typically run until about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. On meet days or meet day, I would anticipate that the meet would run until probably about 6:30 or so, depending on how many students we have that particular day. And we'd ask that it be closed to the public when the high school teams were using it.
Question, the cross-country meets, are they co-ed or they do their own?
They are co-ed, so when you host a meet, you're hosting both the boys and girls meets.
On the same day?
On the same day, and you're also hosting novice meets in both genders as well. So you have typically a boys novice race, the boys varsity race, girls novice race, and a girls varsity race. So they go rather quickly, but
Are they typically on the weekday or weekend?
they're typically on the weekday.
Because I remember we did at least one on the weekend, I think it was.
Those are invitationals. I don't anticipate us having an invitational.
So just the FCAC?
An FCAC, yeah, typically they're on Mondays or Tuesdays.
Other questions from the commission? Amy? You look like you're brewing a question.
Talking about dogs and how that ended up in there being a hard and fast rule. Does that go back to, did we vote on that?
We did not vote on that. The current park rules do allow dogs off leash at Diller. I cannot speak to whether it's being utilized or not. My impression is the property really isn't utilized by anybody for anything. So that is a request specific from the Board of Ed with a restriction on the dogs. I did ask them and the foundation to be, prepared to address that request at the reasoning this evening.
I think it just comes down to a safety factor. If we have high school students, sharing that piece of property, we just make that request formally to this commission.
So it's no dogs, either on leash or off leash?
Correct.
What about the weekend or in the summer?
Again, we would make that request. I don't know at what point. The high school property, we obviously have more ownership of that than we do the Diller property. And, we would make a request that I think for safety that there were no dogs permitted, but I think that's a larger discussion that would be had by this commission.
But would you want that during the times of practices or
Yes.
at any time?
I mean, certainly when times of practice for the safety and well-being of the students.
And
May I introduce Jennifer to
Jennifer
our Darren Athletic Foundation? I think part of where there's a little bit of a disconnect, and I apologize if this wasn't really previously brought up, but I think when we explained the path, this cross-country path is a little bit different than most, maybe even like a waiting, which we're accustomed to hearing a little bit more about, where these kids are running and there may or may not be people with dogs on leash. I'm neither here nor there. I'm very neutral about this, as we are the Darien Athletic Foundation, but I just want to make you aware of what the loop actually looks like. So maybe that will help you make a decision. So let's just say, so what happens is, this loop, yes, we cut through the Diller Park as part of this loop for cross country. But in order to continue this loop, it's going through the high school. And during the high school property, it's not always behind the trees and in the woods. There's an area of this path that you're running across the turf fields, the wide open turf fields. So hypothetically, if you want to do this loop with your dog, dogs are not permitted on the fields at the school. So, you know, it doesn't make sense to be able to walk the path or run the path with your dog, because then theoretically you'd be running across an open baseball field that is got the turf on it, which is prohibited. So and that's probably why it's not really, we really haven't been able to figure this out and how to make this work for everyone. But the Diller Park, for instance, I mean, that, how do you contain someone when they're going to do the cross-country loop, and then suddenly they're finding themselves walking, and now they're across the baseball field in a wide open, because that part of that does interject, like come across on this cross-country path. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
You know, it's helpful.
It's also hard though, like for us, I think, just even to have these inconsistent rules. I mean, it's already going to be tough enough to figure out when the public can be on it because of track meets and practices. And then we're going to say, oh, dogs can be on it at this time. I mean, it just becomes like an enforcement nightmare, and I think it's kind of a pain. Because dogs aren't even allowed, like you said, on fields and all these other spots. So, I mean, I like the consistency of not having the dogs there. Even though I've been here for so long that was considered. We were going to build a dog park there. I don't know if you know that for many years, but that never came to fruition because we were told that people didn't want a dedicated dog park. So we're just glad to see the space used and that it can be used for kids. And we're talking about safety issues. I mean, I think kids are going to go there and practice even when it's not tracks, time. To be honest with you,
there's probably not room enough. If they're out there practicing, all of a sudden you come upon someone with a dog.
It's just not safe. They tend to run after people. I mean, dogs run
Right,
after
absolutely. I think it would be an inconvenience for a dog owner also to constantly be, not everybody's as well behaved as this great little dog down there. So, just so, like I said, I don't have any opinion about it, but I did want your commission to understand what the actual path is all about and what it's like. And there are areas where it narrows to 5 feet. So that's not a lot of room to be pulling a dog aside and someone running by, and who knows whose dog is going to chase someone for some reason. It's just something to think about.
It may be good to assess it for a year with none.
Yeah, we can revisit
come back and revisit it and see how
we do a test pilot. I'd say keep the dogs off for now.
Just complete your,
yes,
you're proposing
safety.
completely.
I would prefer it to be for safety of the students and anybody, the public that might be using it there. And we'll reassess it. If we see there's a need for more space for dogs, we can reassess it.
There's plenty of areas for people to bring their dogs that we allow them to. So.
Did we ever resolve the parking situation? How did we ever do?
6 spaces.
6 spaces and the new sidewalk, and we talked about that, and that they would be limited
Have
hours.
accessible, limited hours, the enforcement will be.
Enforced by signage, and the police, you've had that discussion with them, whatever the signage is,
They will abide by
enforce.
that. Okay, so that you don't have to worry about kids parking there.
That was one of the concerns of the neighbors, is that the tardy students would use them for parking spaces. But I think there's other streets in the neighborhood, Lily Lane and others that I know are marked, no parking during school hours.
I'm sorry, I missed the last one. I thought you actually were talking about fewer parking spaces there than 6. How did
6 were proposed and approved.
Okay, I just thought it was 4 for some reason.
I think it started at 4.
It started at 15,
Oh.
and it was whittled down because of the wetlands and the curb, and they narrowed it down to 6. One of them being handicap accessible.
I don't know why I thought it was 4.
5 regular and 1 handicap parking space were approved.
Okay, so it's done. Okay. Missing me.
Any other questions, thoughts, Mary Louise, here? Sarah?
Actually, who's going to monitor the dog piece of it?
I think the police will have with signage.
And it's like most.
It's like any
It's
park.
like-
No one's out there monitoring, but
Right.
we come upon, or we have to.
If there's
Right.
The police were very clear that they will happily enforce as long as there's signs.
Yes.
It's just not as easy as like an open park. You're in the woods for part of it, so.
It happens in Woodland all the time.
Right,
But the park is, parking's right there, you can spot it pretty easily, people coming out with dogs, I guess, pretty easy.
So to recap, the request from the board of ed would be to, there'll be signage posting that they effectively on weekdays from, the season starts by mid-August.
The cross-country season starts third week of August and runs through early November.
Okay. Or I thought you mentioned into early December even.
That was indoor. I think.
Well, the indoor season starts in early December, and like I said, when you have those nice early December days, there's the
I
chance.
guess we need to understand what the date request would be in terms of, or do we just want to
I-
formally close it off on weekdays?
When school's
from
in
the third
session.
week in August.
I would say when
until-
school's in session.
But just for the track season.
So track is 3 seasons. There's cross-country in the fall, is indoor in the winter, although we do have training that takes place outside. And the spring outdoor season occurs in third week of March. While there aren't formal competitions during the winter or the spring season, there is the possibility and the likelihood that we would have students training on the path during the winter and the spring season, especially winter weather depending.
Like, that's why we used to see the kids running on the street with the snow.
Yeah, I understand, but I'm a little
That's why
confused when you said school is in session because I think I was envisioning more that the path on the Diller property would be closed from say 2:30 to 6, but that during the school day, because it's a closed loop, that town residents can go and use that loop. They just can't go on the
Yes.
school property.
Yes,
Correct.
that's right, that's right.
Right, okay, so that's what I wanted to clarify. And so with regard to Diller Park, the request would be for the park, essentially, the loop to be closed to the public from what you're saying during the school year.
Again, there is certainly in the fall,
Yeah.
and there's chances on a nice day that winter or spring we would be using that as training purposes as well.
They prefer to be outside if they can.
I understand, but the question is, do we want to keep it closed to the public, not knowing whether it will be used every day? I'm just throwing that as a discussion point.
Well, I mean, for example, the track at the high school is closed to the public when not used by the school or youth. I would perhaps think it would be something similar in that when the high school is using it, it would be closed to the public.
I just think we're now saying that basically 9 months out of the year, we can't use our park.
Or just
It's
certain
during-
hours.
Well, school hours of the day, and it goes the whole day, right?
Don't think we need to close it during school hours. I think we're
No,
talking
that's
about
our
practice.
practice.
Not the Diller
After
portion.
school.
Not the
After
Diller.
Not the Diller portion.
2:30 to 5.
2:30 to 5.
2:30 to 5:30, okay.
5,
All right, I was
5
getting
is,
there.
yeah, pretty.
yeah, they're
The
done.
only time we go past 5 o'clock is on a competition day, but by 5 o'clock, practice is usually.
Okay. All right, so the
wrapped
public
up.
can use it up until today.
I mean, the offset is not usable at all right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, of course.
we're way ahead of where we've ever been, and frankly, any improvements to Diller Park is fairly low on the
On the
Commissioner's priority list, and so this really is, an opportunity that we didn't anticipate to improve one of our sadder parcels and make it usable for, our athletes and others. So I think it really is a win-win, but I just want to make sure that we're all clear on the details and that, and as anybody gets questions, they can understand them. Okay, so I believe, all right, just to recap, because I want to make sure we get this clear for the minutes, is that the proposal is that we would permit the Darien Athletics to use Diller Park exclusively, thank you, that's good language, during the school year from 2:30 until 5:30? You want 6?
Again, the only time we go 6 or later is on 1 or 2 times we have a competition on that property.
Or do we say 5:30 and then later, on competition days?
It's hard because they only have 2, so it's hard to
Right.
say make it that much longer
Yeah.
or just the 2 competitions. Why don't we just say 5:30 and split the difference?
Okay.
And that way,
Okay.
if you're over, it's
Okay.
nobody's gonna jump in at
Yeah.
5:30.
Okay.
2:30 to 5? Yeah, 5:30
to 5:30 on weekdays
during the school year.
during the school year. And that,
And are we gonna, breaks, just holidays? I know that they practice during the holidays, you wanna keep it the school year, you know, because with the
So they do have training that takes place during, certainly, you know,
Christmas.
there's already an extended break in the fall, but we do have a couple of holidays in which school is out, but
Right,
kids are training, and certainly in the,
so no holiday exceptions, we're just gonna keep it regular, okay, school year.
yes.
so thinking this through, I think that that would be one motion, which would be the usage and then the time when the park would not be open to the public. I think we have to deal with the allowance of dogs on the property separately because it is currently stated in our rules and regulations, so that actually would be a change to our rules, so I think that needs to be a separate motion. So should we act on the first motion first?
Sure.
Okay, so I need someone to move it. Susan? Tina? Okay. All in favor?
Okay.
Any opposed? Okay, we're good on that. And then specifically to the rules, it's not fast enough, but our rules do specifically currently state the dogs, there's a whole section on dogs.
Dog section.
The dog section. I'm not going to find it quickly enough. Do you want to flip while I'm talking? Sure. So I believe we would make a motion to amend the Darien Parks and Recreation rules to prohibit dogs from Diller Park
At all times.
at all times. That is the motion on the table if someone would like to move that. Mayor Louise? A second? Amy, all those in favor? And any opposed? So we will find these specific, I just want to find, there is a specific reference which we should have for the minutes, so. But,
I thought you accept seeing the dogs.
no, there's a specific reference to do it, I'm sorry, I should have flagged it, so, but we will find it. But I know it's in here. Okay, I think we are finished with the Board of Education.
Thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I really do want to thank the Darien Athletic Foundation and Jen in particular, who has been relentless in pursuit of this project on behalf of the students in the town and the improvement of our parks. Thank you.
I did want to clarify that, because you opened up with saying we've got 6 to 8 months, but you've been at it for 4 years.
Yeah.
I just wanted to publicly say thank you to you. I mean, that is a long time. That's how long I've been here now, so it just, yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have a very full agenda tonight, is to discuss and take action on a new partnership for the improvement of the beach. I hope that most, if not all, of the commissioners, I think, either heard from him or I directly, or some of you were able to attend the selectmen's meeting on Monday night where the partnership was formally announced. But as you know, we had hoped to be able to proceed with the development of the short lane part of this property and had requested approximately $600,000 to be included in the 2020 budget to proceed with that plan. You recall that we did have a presentation by Dan Beeks at Weston and Sampson in February and a public hearing at that time. But the funding was subsequently cut other than $50,000 to pursue the plans. Pam in the interim did proceed to get some of the required municipal approvals that we needed. We have the EPC approval and sewer commission approval. She did not continue to approve planning and zoning as some very exciting things developed. And Pam did reach out to various private organizations in town to attempt to secure alternate funding to proceed with this project. And she reached out to both the Darien Foundation and the Darien Athletic Foundation. And as I hope we've all heard by now, we're very excited to announce on Monday night that these two organizations are partnering with each other and with the town in order to help us develop the short lane parcels. We may stop calling it the short lane parcel and actually really integrate it into this beautiful park that we're sitting in. And then they also generously, as they looked at our vision for the park and the original vision, some of it goes back to when Susan was on the building committee, to really capture the whole park in terms of one connected set of pathways so that people would have a full walking loop around the entire park. They very generously offered to fund that as well. So we have members of both foundations here with us this evening. I think they're going to speak to us for a few minutes about the project along with Pam.
I just wanted to add too that the town, with this partnership, is looking to use as many town resources as possible to help on our side of it. We're taking the $50,000 that was given to us by the town to hire Weston Sampson to complete the design. So they're currently going to do that, and that will be what our first job is going to be. And I also wanted to mention that Sarah, Executive Director of the Darien Foundation, we all kind of had a little powwow about the actual project name, because we've been calling it the Beach Short Lane Improvement Project. And so we had put out, and I did put it out to the commission as well, I don't know if everybody did go on the link, but put out some sort of a survey of a variety of names. So at one point we'd like to be able to talk about that as well. But in the meantime, just incredibly excited to work together. And I think, as Jen mentioned on Monday night, there's just that feeling that it's all it's going to work. We're all going to sit down and like, how excited to look at these plans and give the town its first boardwalk along the beach that will connect to paved pathways that people can either stroll wheelchair or rollerblade or ride their bikes and learn to ride a bike outside of a parking lot. You know, that people are seeking a place to be able to learn how to ride. And now they can actually go on a loop that's protected. And I'd love to get the pollinator pathway involved and really look to make this pathway an experience. So a journey, you know, you can park at Wee Beach, and I think that people will really walk away from this thinking what an amazing project for a variety of different people. And it's different than woodland, having entering the woods and taking a trip like that. Now we're going to utilize the 25 acres in a way that's never been utilized before. So it is truly exciting. This is such a great opportunity. Maybe one opportunity that will never come across again. So maybe Ward, you might want to say a few words about the Darien Foundation. Ward Glassmeyer sits on both the Darien Foundation and the Darien Athletic Foundation. He certainly is here representing both, correct?
Yeah, and obviously Jen's here too, so I'll make this quick, and then I'll let you guys ask questions. But before I start, Carrie Kelly, Sarah Light, Kira Kapan, and Sarah Woodbury, this is what makes our group great, so I want to make sure that all our people get their credit. And then you've already, and then I'm going to get to Jen. This is my other half here, Jen Montanero, I need to make sure. But our group, I can speak to both groups in a second, but the Darien Foundation, which is, I'm the chair of the Darien Foundation, I'm on the board of the Darien Athletic Foundation, and to be fair, really Jen and Mark and Peter and Lou are kind of a foursome of force that have really run the Darien Athletic, and Bruce I should include too, Ferguson, are the real force there. And I'm a little voice there, I'm a much bigger voice with our people over here, so just to keep it all square. But anyway, just real quick, and then you guys can ask questions. I spoke for probably too long on Monday night. You know, in regards to, I'll say two things. One about our involvement, and two about our partnership with the Darien Athletic Foundation. So why don't I start with that? I think that since our origin, I guess I'll start with the Darien Foundation staff. The Darien Foundation, we got started 20 plus years ago, and the whole thesis there was we were going to do these public-private partnerships, and a lot of that started in the school system. And originally it was just technology, and now we've evolved to doing all these capital and community projects. And I'll let you guys be the judge, but I think the team here has done a terrific job. When the Darien Athletic Foundation was getting started, they were nice enough to think of us as the stamp of approval to help get them going, and so we were the backers, or the early backers of the Darien Athletic Foundation, and kind of sowed the seeds for our friendly scenario here. And this isn't the first thing, just so you guys can feel good about this, this isn't the first thing that we've partnered on. We've partnered on another big initiative already, and I think everyone can attest that that other partnership is going very well. So anyway, I just want to give a little background there. In regards to Weed Beach, as you guys know, thanks to Susan and her team that came to us over 10 years ago to do the playground by the sound, I think we've always had an affinity for Weed Beach and the public parks, and whatever we can do to make the town, you know, a little better. Not that you guys aren't making it terrific, but we're trying to add a little bit of extra wherever we can. And so I think that we've already got our heart, you know, into this. In fact, I know that I think Pam talked to the Darien Athletic Foundation first, and it was really Jen and Mark and Pete and Blue and Bruce that thought, hey, we should bring in the Darien Foundation as well. And so when we got the call or the whatever it was, the email to do this, you know, we jumped at the opportunity. And I think the nice thing, I said it's going to be short, but the nice thing about it is that there's some real great skill sets that this Darien Athletic Foundation has just from doing all these fields and everything. And then I think there's some really good expertise, and I'll give Sarah Woodbury some extra credit here just for thinking about naming and how can we brand this thing and make it super special. I don't know if any of you were here for that. I know you were running it for that 10th anniversary we just had, but you know, we put those banners up. Like, we're really trying to create like a little excitement around all this, and so I think it's a great project. I think it's a great team, and I'm including you guys as a third of that team. But I'm just trying to give people here who don't know a little background on how we all operate. If there's anything else I missed, I'll let people ask questions if they want to miss it.
Yeah, I think we did.
Okay. Dive in if you want, but I can't say enough about our people. I just want to make sure we have great people here. So I don't know if there's any questions, I don't want to walk away.
Questions from the commission? We were at the beginning of a journey on this. But in terms of, you know, we could certainly speak to the process on how this would run, if that would be helpful. Yes, okay. As proposed, the foundations would be providing a gift to the town in that they would essentially take almost the lead on the development of the project, and they would be the ones to hire the contractors, oversee the work, etc. I believe we will move towards establishing a building committee. That was discussed with the selectmen on Monday night, and they will discuss that and vote on it at their next meeting. But
they're also under this impression that we may not have to. We're still
we may not have
to work together.
Right.
So that's still.
We're still working that out.
Because there's no building. There's no actual building. So
no, we're not talking about a.
So I think regardless, we're all going to have representatives from each group to work together to move forward.
To move forward and develop the plans, but because the, let me try to articulate this, because of the funding, the majority of the funding, not all of it, but the majority of the funding, well, really almost all of it except for the 50,000, will be provided by the foundations. They will take the lead in terms of retaining the contractors, and then the town will be contributing in-town resources for camp staff, wherever can do clearing of property or different types of work where they have the employees, the machinery, whatever to conduct that work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct.
To help defray costs.
Excuse me? To help defray costs. Yes. And also to make sure that the town is making a contribution to this project. Right.
We did, for Playground by the Sound, we did something very similar, where we did everything, we fundraised the money independently, we raised $250,000, and we did everything, we managed it, we dealt with all the trades, we got the approvals, and then we gifted it back to the town.
Right.
And then any money that we had that we didn't use, we actually gave it to the town to maintain. So there is like really good precedent, and obviously the Darien Foundation was a major part of that funding, which is how we got it done.
And this is also how the actual construction of the running path on Diller will work, is that the foundation will actually be managing that whole process for us, and then gifting the running path to the town.
And we will maintain it.
And then we'll maintain it. Yes. So we're at the very, beginning steps of framing out partnerships. Once the plans are, developed and vetted out in terms of, we've looked at, Dan Biggs presented to us plans we looked at in February, but now we'll be looking at really just finishing out the plan to connect everything. I would expect they would come back, and then the commission would, formally vote on sort of, yes, we like these
I think the
plans.
partnership, the teams will look at the plans together and then bring it back here to this commission
Correct.
to be voted on. And as I said, that some of the boards have already been approved, we already had some approvals. So we withdrew our application from P&Z because of this. And so then we'll resubmit to P&Z once those plans are established. And at that point, because they would be handling construction, it would be out of our hands then.
This was in the original plan too for Wade Beach. Like, I actually have the plan from 2006, and there is a boardwalk, and it was supposed to interconnect around the property, all around, so that it was going to be accessible to people in wheelchairs. It was actually one of the most important things that we really enjoyed, but we needed to look for places to cut, and this was one of the places that we had to choose. But, it works perfectly with where we are. It allows access to all.
Lori, this is a broader vision than what's presented in quote the master plan.
No, master plan
No,
has the boardwalk in
it
it too.
is
But in terms of the
completely,
They
entire,
had it through the whole thing. the
yes,
master
it
plan.
is completely consistent
so in
with the master
effect,
plan.
this is a way to affect this.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and that's a very good point, Mary Louise, thank you for bringing it up, and I did, in my remarks to the selectmen on Monday night, I did specifically reference the master plan, and this is completely consistent with what's in the master plan, and further, as you know, the master plan contains other potential features for this end of the property, and this really doesn't, it was laid out in a way that those features, in theory, could be developed at a later time, but that's not part of this project. But what it does is it completes that part of the project, connects the grassy area to the beach where now it drops down, you can't get there. It dips down and it's too wet, so we'll take care of invasive species, get rid of them, remediate the wetlands, so make the shore more resilient. So there's a lot of natural, and when we talk to our friends from Pollinator Pathway, we're also talking about not only coastal resilience, but also, plantings and really developing the parcels so that it's, friendly to all the creatures that we want to encourage to be here, so.
So I've got a question about the relationship vis-a-vis how we set up the liability. If they're working on our property to develop it, there's a mishap, who owns that liability?
Can you speak to that, Jen?
I sort of kind of think because we did something similar when we were doing the fields at the high school. I think everyone has insurance, and I can't answer exactly.
So it's co-owned?
Yeah, it is. And I just sort of want to, this hasn't really anything to do with that, but I do want to mention when we have done some of these other projects, there's been such a great collaboration. I mean, we started with the pavilion. I was there all summer long, weekly meetings with the Board of Education, with then Lou Giswaldi, who wasn't part of the Darien Athletic Foundation, but we had hired him, and Mark Bothwell, another local Darien guy. And there were weekly meetings and update meetings, and everybody was kept abreast. And certainly, the Darien Foundation and the Darien Athletic Foundation, we have this great collaboration. There's a lot of overlap on both boards, and certainly, Pam and her team is incredibly easy to work with because we've been talking about a lot of different things and what's the right thing for everyone to kind of step in and help you get through, past the finish line. So sometimes there's concern like who's got control, who doesn't. I think that this is going to be seamless, if this should go forward, and there's such a great partnership already that we all have, and I think as all being residents, we all want this to go forward. We all have our names attached to it, as would some of the builders that would be involved with this. In any of the projects we do, for sure, the Darien Athletic Foundation, they're local people, it's their reputation. So I just just did want to make mention of that. And I know it doesn't answer the liability issue,
Yeah.
but I did want you to know that there will be a lot of collaboration.
Yeah,
But we do
But the
have
agreement's
Jamie's
been-
involved,
No.
Kate's
so the
involved.
agreements have not been signed
Yeah.
yet, and they're still working.
Yeah,
So I'm sure all the work
That'll all be-
will
that'll all be
flesh
That'll
out.
just, yeah.
I just wanted to
It's
get
because of
that.
formality
Yeah.
about who's covering you, and then
Yeah,
I'll
like
show you
who's
evidence.
doing what and what, I just.
We'll
Right.
work through all of
Yeah.
that. That's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Great. And when do you think the agreements will be signed, and what's the timeline on this? Do we
We're
have
just
time?
getting started. We have to figure out meeting time. We have to talk, we've already talked to town officials together before we publicly announced. And this is, like Jen said, it's not unknown to our town attorney, the agreement they've already had together with Dylan. So it's gonna be very similar.
Right.
And I think that that's gonna happen ASAP, so we can move. The good thing is because the approvals that I've received only last so long. So we don't want those to expire, so we have to go through the whole process again.
Yeah.
So we need to move.
I bet you Weston Sampson's so thrilled that their vision
So thrilled.
is going to come to fruition.
Yeah.
It'll be wonderful for them.
The hope is that the project could be completed by next June because you have the Darien Bicentennial 2020 celebration, that would be with the
Brilliant.
festival, so if we could have it done by then, it would be fantastic.
So, yeah, what are we trying to do here? We're trying to get them a pre-approval, or how does this work? Because with Playground by the Sound, we did everything, I mean, they knew we were doing it, and it was part of the building committee. And so they kind of gave us a pre-approval, but the actual approval, the receiving of the gift happened at the end, we were done with it.
That's how that's going
It's
to be.
good. So basically, you need to get pre-approval from just the board of selectmen, or do we need to go, I mean, obviously Parks and Rec,
Parks and Rec, the
But-
selectmen.
and
And the
then
RTM,
you do need a pre-approval from them?
I believe so.
I don't remember doing the pre-approval with the
No.
RTM.
I think
I thought so, but
how we did the Diller property is that I went through all the approval processes through the town bodies, with the exception to go forward, and first because it was Board of Ed, and then we also came to Parks and Rec, we were granted the right to go forward to gain all the necessary approvals. So we went to all the different town bodies that we needed to, had EPC, had our public hearings,
Okay, so
planning and
ended with
zoning public
RTM.
hearings, and then the final stop was the RTM. And then, once the RTM agreed and accepted the gift of the Diller and the high school, we then went back to the Board of Education for them to formally accept it. So I could see this probably going similarly,
Yeah.
whereas we go through all the necessary town bodies that need to approve this. And then it's really just accepting a gift, because if I recall, John, I'm speaking out of turn, John Sini from Planning and Zoning, saying it's as of right use. So you already own the property, you're managing the property. It's within your jurisdiction, so it's an as of right use for you to be doing this. I could be wrong, hope I'm not wrong, but I think that's how it goes.
perfect. That sounds right. So for here, we're doing a motion
I
to
think
move
it's,
forward.
I think it's the motion to move forward, to proceed with the
Necessary.
many steps that we will need to go through to attempt to bring this to reality.
I just want to say huge thank you to you guys, on your hard work, and Pam. I mean, it's really an amazing gift for the town. And we're very blessed to have you.
It's amazing.
We're all believers in Pam.
Yep.
I know.
Round of applause. Okay, so if I could have a motion? Second? Amy? All in favor?
And I lastly just want to bring up the project name. Sarah, would you
Oh,
like to
yeah.
speak to it?
Sure, I mean, basically, we're just, I know that, I'm not saying that this is to be like the name of the thing, but I really have to credit Jen, and DAF said, we were having our initial meetings, they were saying, we'd be to collaboration, short-lane projects, so we were just trying to come up with like a catchy way to refer to it, so, and ultimately we could decide if we decided to brand it that way, but I guess you all voted in the pool, and the name that was overwhelmingly chosen was the boardwalk at Weed Beach. So that was sort of what we were thinking of referring it to in press releases and things, but we didn't want to kind of go down that path without bringing that to the commission. So
So do you see that as the name of just how you refer to the project or the location itself? Because we've talked about naming that area. There's a picnic area that we called, I guess, West last year. Remember we were talking about?
West and East.
And, you know, so.
It's just the
Yeah, no,
project.
I think,
So it's just the project name.
project
that we-
I think right now, and I mean, I don't really know how the procedure should be also. We just thought we have a great, something to talk about, like when we do our press release, and because this will be in the news and going forward, blah, 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 like sort of, you know, how sometimes a project starts with a name and switch, like Oxford, and now they switch to Highland, and so it's confusing people. I just thought, let's come up with a name to refer to it to. We don't necessarily have to, we're not trying to rename the park. I think
But
that
I
might
don't
be.
think you should change, I think you should go into it hoping that it is for the long term.
I think that's what Sarah's making a good point. And I think also that, you know, since we do want some impact in the branding of it, right? So if for some reason we don't like that name, we can have some discussions on it, but we should come up with something that Parks likes, we likes, you know, so that we can go forward with it. And
It was overwhelming from the
well, I
people
think
that.
of the 42 people who voted, like 16, so a third voted for that, and then every other, like, you know, I think there were about 20 people
Yeah, there were,
submitted.
yeah.
So we let anybody submit. Most of the other ones got sort of 1 or 2. The second runner-up was a variation of that, like beach boardwalk. So basically the same idea. We could do a runoff, people feel strongly. I mean, I just thought it was good to get something that we can brand, we can talk about that's not a mouthful. I was actually at our block party last night on the street in the rain. People were asking me about this, and they're all very excited because there's nowhere to teach your kid to ride a bike. So
Yeah.
exciting. But anyway, so
Instead of waiting till next month.
Right, it's just that it's more than just the boardwalk.
That's my
I was thinking the dunes at Wheat Beach, you know, or something like that, because are you gonna have like dunes or like plantings that keep the dunes? I don't know, something that's more descriptive of a bigger area than the boardwalk, because, I mean, you're gonna have, you know, pavilions, right, and all this other stuff.
right.
So,
Right.
adding like a, what?
I know Jen had a name, she can't
You had a
remember.
name.
I mean, we
In our
can
first meeting.
continue to work on that. I mean, that's
I
a
wrote
good
it
one.
down.
Yeah, she had a great name that she can't remember. It's gonna come to her.
Yeah.
It's gonna come to her.
It's not like playground,
But,
it's not, right?
I think that's why some people wanted to say like boardwalk and meadow or whatever, like the idea
Just
that the
something that
project
captures a
is
bigger space.
Yeah, then that was my
Like just the
concern, is we're
boardwalk.
really talking about this whole,
This is a big
Sidewalks out there,
space,
this
it's
whole-
multi.
So we can keep working on that. Like we need to make a snap decision. We were just saying, let's figure it out as we start to go forward with, you know, press and all
Like
that.
shorefront park or something, I don't know, like things like that, something that's more like encompassing and less just a boardwalk. That's what I was thinking. So, I mean, you guys can do that, but that was the only thing when I looked at it, I was like, and because I think what's gonna happen is your name of your project is gonna kind of bleed into what we ultimately will think about renaming it. So
Right.
that would be helpful, I mean, I
How
know,
about,
Yeah, I think
how
that's a
about
good
if
point,
this
Sarah.
commission
you know, right?
puts in some 2 cents into the list that's already there?
We will,
Or
okay.
Because
maybe-
that way,
Did anyone vote? I mean, I wonder if we should
I looked
know
at it.
some of those names out that didn't get votes. Like maybe I could write down that list and we could do a round 2 just
Yeah.
to make people feel more comfortable. Does that?
and if anybody here has anything to add to it, because we don't want this to linger for months.
No,
We really want to choose
We're not gonna
something.
get it unanimous, so it's
No, we're
gotta
not.
be, you gotta be
Right.
comfortable with majority.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And honestly catchy. I mean, I will say that like people, you know, I am neutral actually on the name because there are about 3 of them that I really liked. But the boardwalk at Weed Beach, or the Weed Beach Boardwalk, whatever, it's got to have like catchy. Like some of the names were great, but they were kind of long and a mouthful. So we kind of want something that, you know,
So why don't you narrow it down and send it back out?
Jen's gonna remember at 3 o'clock this morning.
I know, seriously.
She will figure it out. There's lots of great stuff in this brain. It'll come out. Anyway,
So we'll wait to get more.
Okay, so you'll chop it down for us and resend it.
Thank you.
Yeah, great. So I think we're set on that.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very long agenda tonight. Okay, next, we have, in keeping with commission wanting to connect with other important friends groups and other groups in town that have missions that are very compatible and consistent with what we're doing, we have 2 guests, Deepika and Juliet, here from the Pollinator Pathway. And at least a few of us attended the talk at the Darien Library a few months ago by Dr. Thank you. Who showed us more more about insects than I thought I wanted to know, but it was very interesting. And they're going to talk about the work, how they're trying to bring the concepts to the town of Darien. And I hope we can really talk about really what your ask is of the Parks and Recreation Commission and how we can support work that you're trying to do for the town.
Thank you. Well, also, I'm Juliet Kane, and we're a little challenged tonight. We normally have a wonderful, quite long PowerPoint presentation with glossy pictures, and it's much easier to follow than just listening to me. And I understand that you weren't able to print out much of it. So we'll skim over my introduction because what I wanted to do was explain how we fit into a sort of a larger global context. And then we're going to talk about the pathway itself, how it's structured.
Did you want these 4 slides?
It doesn't really matter. I'll just sort of wing it because it's going to be more casual, I think, that way. But the global context, it's hard to avoid these days. There's so much media reporting about loss of pollinators, loss of insects, and I think the most important recent publication has been a UN report that was issued May 6th of this year. And that has really discussed the sort of more global ramifications of a loss of biodiversity and how it adversely affects our ecosystems. And by biodiversity, I just mean the variety of plant and animal species that exist, and then the variety within those species as well. And there are multiple stressors on both the plant and the animal species right now, from pollution, climate change, invasive plants, and pesticides. And so what the UN is saying, this is going to be an issue for our economies, for our livelihoods, for our health, and global food supply as well. We are very dependent on very few crops. We are very dependent on pollinators for 90% of our crops. And as the pollinators numbers are decimated, that has this knock-on effect. The ecosystem is a very delicate balance of interdependence. And once you disrupt, it doesn't even have to be extinction. The UN is saying we're going to lose 1 million different plant and animal species over the next few years. You don't even have to have extinction to have a disruption in the system. And so what we are trying to do on obviously a much more grassroots level is address a restoration of habitat. And we're trying to do that on a local level by encouraging people to landscape with native plants, to get rid of their invasive plants, and also not to use pesticides. And we, instead of presenting to people the doom and gloom of what the UN is saying, we make it much more, we make it much easier. We don't need to talk about the future. We can achieve the outcomes we want, which is the restoration of habitat, restoring pollinator numbers, restoring the health of our soil, because our soil is so degraded right now because of the use of pesticides. We can do that simply by encouraging people to plant native plants that will encourage the beautiful pollinators, the butterflies, the birds, into their backyards. And so it's something that people can easily embrace. It doesn't inconvenience people that much. And then they gradually learn about, you get more interested, want to plant more plants. And they're very willing, I think, at that point, to give up the pesticides because they understand more. They see the results of what they're doing and the benefits that they achieve through this. So I think it probably makes sense if I did talk a little bit about the structure of the pathway.
So this, what Judith is talking about, is what we're talking about in Darien, what we're telling people to do. It's part of a larger initiative. Right now there are 32 towns. When we started on this whole thing, it was last year, there were 2 or 3 towns, Ridgefield, Norwalk, Wilton, and now there are 32 towns, mostly in this lower Fairfield area, but also in Putnam and Westchester counties. Mm. So they're all joining together to create this, like a corridor, a safe habitat for pollinators. So as we ask people to do this, to plant native plants, why? Why are we asking them to plant native plants? We're asking them to do that because the the insects that pollinators depend on, and also the pollinators need these native plants because they've evolved with them. Why are we asking them not to use pesticides? Well, pesticides are basically destroying them. And the other thing is that another factor that affects them is this development. And we're creating all these lawns in our backyards and not creating a diverse set of plants. So this is what the insects want, and that's why we're asking people to do this. And people do understand it, and people are very open to it. They actually love to talk about this. So it's really like a positive thing. Now, what is it that we would like Parks and Rec to do with us? One concept that we have promoted is the concept of the anchor garden. An anchor garden we define as a garden that is in a public space, which is safe for people to be around, to see what a native garden looks like. And so, say it's a Park and Rec location, and if we have a little native garden there, which shows that these native plants are actually quite pretty. They may be called milkweed and New York weed, and they all have names that are kind of sound weedy, but actually they're really pretty plants. And people look at them and they say, oh, these are actually quite almost as nice as the ones that you buy in the garden center actually. The Gardener Center in Darien is one of our partners, and they actually stock a lot of native plants. And actually, there's been a lot of interest in this because as these articles about pollinators being in a decline have started to come up, people are taking notice, and they do want to do something about it. So people are asking the question, what can we do? And so they really
the Garden Centre is really trying to meet that need. They've really made a business decision to try to go as organic as possible. So they are really, that's a difficult business decision for them to make.
So currently, this project has the following partners. There's the Garden Club of Darien, there is the Nature Center, and I'm on the board of that, and the Gardener Center, and the library. And the reason that we all banded together is because we had Doug Talamy come and speak at the library, and all the 4 organizations, and plus other organizations in town did participate in this. So the anchor garden is very key, and we want to establish about 5 or 6. Currently, we know that outside the Darien Sports Shop, we're going to have one. They will agree to do that. We're talking to one of the students at the Darien High School, and she is a member of the Eco Club, and she is going to, work on this project to put in a native plant garden. In addition, there
at the high school.
At the high school, yes. Yeah. And there's an Eagle Scout that also wants to work on a project for the pollinator pathway. We, in order to fund all these initiatives, we have applied for grants. We got a $2,000 grant from Patagonia, their environmental grant. So we have a little amount of money to get this initiative going. So one of the reasons we came to you is that it would be amazing if we could add Parks and Rec as one of the partners in this initiative. And then when you have your Weed Beach project, we could help you, there are other projects I'm sure in town.
And it's a great, it would be very inspiring for the residents of town to see the town actually be part of the organisation, because they really will respect that. They will really want to copy it. They'll see these anchor gardens and want to have the same effect on them.
And these gardens don't have to be high maintenance gardens. We could like Parks and Rec, I know, wouldn't want to have plants that constantly need weeding and stuff. I'm sure that's a
Definitely not.
But really, we could plant trees, we could plant bushes, we could plant things that are more easy to maintain. And so in a nutshell, that's what we want to talk to you about. And is there anything else?
Well, the only other issue is we want to be certain that there wasn't any spraying of pesticides on the town properties, and that we're not completely clear about whether that's happening or not.
Do you know the answer to that? Yes, we just met with 4 women.
Friends of the Animals? Yes, yeah.
And with Jim Flynn. And we do spray, which is mandated by the state. So Jim, we don't use any pesticides anywhere else but once a year on athletic baseball fields. So they came, we talked to Jim. Jim walked away saying that he was actually going to look into an organic product His concern is that it's not guaranteed to work, the organic product. So he's going to speak with Chris, the garden center.
Oh, good.
And so he's willing to look into the product and willing to go that route, but he wants to make sure that his fields as well. He's concerned about grub activity, and apparently if this product can't work to remove the grubs, then that could be injury prone on the fields because
So, but there's some parks that don't have baseball fields, so that there's some parks that.
we spray anywhere, even in Tilly Comm, he uses an organic product there, but it's the athletic fields that he's concerned with, and they have a licensed person that does spray once a year only.
And did you say that's mandated by the state?
That is okay, yes, that athletic fields and the parks can be.
Okay.
It's okay.
So,
It's okay to-
last
Yes.
year we
So
had,
I'm just confused by that, for 1 second. So there's some parks that don't have athletic fields. So those parks are free of pesticides?
Just because we choose to. He does not do any pesticides on anything else but the athletic fields.
On the athletic
We
fields.
don't do
So
any
Weed Beach
pesticides.
doesn't have pesticides. This is what I'm
No
trying to
other
break
parks.
it out so that we may not, for some completely be adherent to their needs, but maybe some parks can be, and we can.
They already are.
And say that they already are, and I don't know.
But I think the feeling is, and I feel this way too, the
So-
schools have to be 8th grade and under. They
Yeah.
cannot
Yes.
use any pesticides on their fields.
even their playing fields.
Right.
We don't have
yes.
any.
Yeah.
So it does,
Board of Ed's
to me,
Yeah,
if they can't, I don't know why parks.
because they have turf,
So,
because they're all
so
turf.
I'm clear, I thought you were starting to say the state mandated that we do spray. You're saying.
No,
that-
They're allowed to
They say
spray.
that it's okay.
They're saying that it's okay.
The one they
to
do
just
is okay.
spray
Use is
athletic
okay.
fields.
So it's just McGuan, really, and
McGuan,
Town
Cherry
Hall.
Lawn,
Cherry Lawn and Baker.
and Town Hall,
Town Hall.
Baker,
Right.
So it's
and,
4.
and Holihan.
Hollyhan is 5.
And only on the fields. Right. Okay.
So there is a gentleman who, I don't remember his name, but I will find that out and send that to you. He manages the grounds at Greens Farm Academy. And he came and spoke at the Dairy and Nature Center last year about his organic management of the whole school. So with the,
His name?
I forgot his name, but I'll
Because
send
I
you.
believe they gave,
Jim knows him.
yeah, so they gave Jim, I think
Was
that
Family
family.
of Comm, I can't think of his name either.
So
Okay.
he's willing to search it out and take a look at it. They
Okay.
have- Yeah.
And I think there's also, UConn has a webpage that shows you how to manage athletic fields organically. And it isn't just a question of one particular product that gets sprayed. It's a question of turf management, when you mow, what grasses you plant.
They gave him a link to all that.
He's got all that,
And
okay.
he walked away with a hefty,
Good, good.
hefty amount of information.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
If you ever need anything else, we could give him a
absolutely. And that literally just happened 2 days ago.
So is there an optimum size for an anchor garden?
Well, the size is not an issue. It can be a container, and that would be an anchor garden. The optimum conditions would be to be in an area where people can come and look at it. It's a public space, and
Or even if it's on private property, if it's accessible. So at the sports shop, for example, it's right on the corner of the post road and ledge, Leroy. So it's very visible. So it doesn't have to be a town property per se, as long as it's visible.
Have you contacted Dorothy Trigalis regarding community gardens at Cherry Lawn?
Yes, we've spoken to them,
Okay.
yes. We gave them a presentation actually, and we're working with the Beautification Commission as well, speaking to the people who manage the various traffic islands and areas like that. There are issues of liability insurance, permitting, which make it difficult to start there. But so we were thinking at the high school and at with the sports shop, it's sort of easier to get going. This is our first year, so the more we can in our first year, the better.
And the nature center would be a good spot as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And the community garden is right there, close to the nature center.
Yeah.
So have you identified either a park or various parks where you think the anchoring garden would be well suited and in keeping with the master plans we have for those parks?
Well, I'm not totally familiar with the master plan, but I don't think that I wouldn't see that any park, I think any park would benefit from some portion, that's pathway dedicated. As Deepa said, it can be containers. In fact, we planted containers for Patagonia to thank them for the grant that they gave us. And we even say, we have some handouts we can give you too.
Are you looking for one park?
Well, we don't mind, we will do as many as possible.
As many as possible.
Yeah.
What's the main?
Within
Our goal is to
Yes.
have 9 around town.
Yes.
I mean, you just pick the number.
So it doesn't, they don't have to be in a room, you talk about a pathway, it's not a literal, like...
No, but this is the problem with not being able to walk you through our presentation, but pathway is really the generic name for what we're doing, and it really connotes as sort of a safe travelling route for pollinators and migrating
So if you look at
birds.
the map of Darien, you have all these land trust properties. You have the parks that don't use pesticides. There are people that don't use pesticides. And we're putting them on a map as they sign our pledge. We have a pledge that we ask people to read and sign. They've pledged to not use pesticides, and they pledge to plant at least one native plant, which could be an oak tree. Anything that will attract pollinators.
It's a very
And
impressive.
if they do that, we color their property in green. We got this map from,
Town hall.
town hall. And as they sign it, we color it green. Our goal is to make it all green. Of course, there's 8,000 properties, so we have a long way.
So what we say is that the whole of the town potentially is on the pathway. We didn't want to create an artificial route through, given that we've got 3 towns around us underwater, so if the whole of the town can potentially be on the pathway. But in order to be eligible to be on it, you have to take our pledge.
The other towns are following the guidelines set out by this organization called H28, Hudson to Piscataway. These are the 2 rivers, and these are all the towns. And so what they're doing is they're identifying areas of high conservation value. And then, so those maps show up where these highlighted, these spots. And then what they do is they take the path between them, and they contact the homeowners and the business owners, and they ask them to, make their property pollinator friendly. And so they consider that like a path. But in Darien, we have all these land trust properties all over, and all these towns along the river, on this side, the river on this side, and New Canaan on top, also going into pollinator pathway. They're all ending in Darien, so we thought, well, we can't really pick and choose in Darien. And Darien being a small town, and also being on the coast, we feel it's really important for Darien to be pesticide-free.
Oh, yeah.
Good for the pollinators.
It seems to me, I mean, Wee Beach would be great, but because, as you heard, we got a lot kind of
Yeah.
going on with Wee Beach. It might not be the time to be, but I mean, the parks that come to my mind are Tilly, Freight Park, which is a nice little triangular parcel or whatever, different places that, we can consider. So, maybe in terms of an action step, we could either take a vote or a sense of the meeting about support for creating an anchoring garden at one of the town's parks. And then,
I think Jim Fund would have to be.
and then, have Jim involved, work with Julia and Deepika to identify maybe, let's start with one. Find a park that would be well suited, make sure it's just kind of generally in keeping with the master plan for that park. And then, we could come back and, give you guys, the go ahead. And I assume that you guys get, there's always the issue of budget, the town would not have to supply the plants, correct?
Well, right now we have money.
We have money, and in fact, we have plants.
We have plants. Yukon donated 4,000 plants to the pollinator pathway.
Not
Not just us, but all the towns.
So the ask is really for us to allow you to create one of these
It might be different next year.
gardens,
We have to read.
on one of our parks. So effectively, it would be like,
Can't we also, in addition to that, actually designate some parks that don't use pesticides as pollinator pathway parks? And take that pledge for, on behalf of Parks and Recs, for specific parks within the parks community. So we could probably do Salix, we could, right? We can everything up, right? No pesticides. What are the parts where we don't use pesticides?
We don't run everything but athletic fields.
Right, so that's Cherry Lawn Park. Woodland, so I'm eliminating that.
Okay, yeah.
Baker.
Cool, Hollyhan, Town Hall Fields,
McGuire.
Okay, so it seems to me we've got 4 others.
And they also have native plants, we're pretty sure they all have native plants.
Well, solids.
Well, they might.
Well, you can
know,
add them in.
Yes.
They would be on the pathway.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they added them in, we would be in compliance with their 3-pronged pledge.
Right. We
Yeah,
want to
we
make sure
plant
we're
something.
compliant with all the
And
regulations.
trees
Yes,
are pollinator friendly too. They're
Yes.
actually the first pollen that all of these guys get, so they're actually critical.
I mean, one thing we could do if we decide it's appropriate for us to plant on a clean park is we could stake it with one of our
Yes,
pathways.
I love those. Those are great.
Without
I have one.
ask you
Yeah.
to either collaborate without having
Absolutely.
to ask you to sign something, but that garden then is designated and we can continue to have the conversation with
That's a great idea.
Jim about going forward and how the other parks are treated.
And I like the idea of starting with one garden,
Yes,
say
yes.
Tilly Pond, right? Tilly Pond.
Tilly's
Yes,
It's a very nice space. It's very
Visible.
beautiful and
Yeah,
visible.
very visible. And it's a good thing to do this year
Water.
too, to show that the town is involved behind it.
Yes.
That's a
And-
great thing.
And because Chris Barker symbolically, he's in
Yeah,
the
he was- they were-
park too, and he's donated some other plantings.
Oh,
to
yes,
his park, I think in honors of his father.
The
So-
trees, there were several trees.
Yeah,
he
so that would
donated.
be a nice fit.
Yes, yes.
Very nice.
So,
Very nice.
So would you allow like a flowering planting, or would you only want bushes and trees?
I think we need to look at it.
Conversation with John.
Yeah, and have a plan.
I mean, I think we have to work out details.
Yes, because if Chris is involved, he might be willing to.
Yeah.
He's got
Right.
good guys to help.
Maintain it.
Typically, you guys come back to us with a planting plan.
Yeah.
Like you list the plants, you
Yeah.
do
Yes, we can
design,
do that, yeah.
we look at that, maybe talk to Pam first, make sure it's
Yes,
good,
yeah,
and then it come
yeah.
back to us, and then we approve it.
Okay,
So
Yeah,
it's
that's
pretty
a great
straightforward
idea.
after that.
But shall we do we need just a sense of the meeting, or do we want to actually take a vote to,
I think they should present something.
I think
that we
so.
can- I think they
Yeah,
should
we can
present
come up with a
something.
plan, we can
Okay.
say, target Tilly Pond or something.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Why don't we at least take a sense of the meeting, I think we have a sense of the meeting of support to
Yes.
work with the pollinator pathway to
No problems.
support the development of an anchoring garden and generally work with them to hopefully get as many of our parks as possible as the official members.
Yes, that's excellent.
Thank
you for your work. You're so impressive, you've done so much.
We really wanted you all to be members, so I'm really happy you're.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And you, of course, are on the
Yes.
steering committee.
Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Next Sunday.
So we have some native plants outside that we pulled out of our garden, would you like one each?
Sure.
On outside?
Yes.
On your
Okay,
way
you
out.
just grab it on our way out.
Thank you.
All right,
Next,
Chair.
next, we
You have
have
to
our
do this.
very patient Eagle Scout.
It does it?
I'm just gonna put on.
Okay, you're gonna be, okay. Scout, he's gonna be presenting his project on Baker Park.
So, yeah, I guess the project that I want to do is I would like to restore the retaining wall that borders the actual play. The play area in Baker Park. It's kind of hard to see, but down there you can see there's damage, there's like rotting. It's slanted inward, which is the main issue. So it's unsafe and it's not very durable, so it won't last very long. So what I would like to do is basically remove it all and replace it. Just find all the pieces that are still in good condition and keep them to save on cost. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
So it's gonna look basically the way it is now, only refreshed.
The main thing that I'm changing is it's slanted inward because it was not properly put in place.
Okay.
So I'm gonna straighten it out. That's really the only difference. It's not gonna look any different.
I thought you were gonna put seating though.
I was going to, but the problem is it's not actually deep enough to do that. So, because I mean, the actual wall itself is like the height you would sit on,
Gotcha.
so I can't really make a chair lower because it would be very
You
uncomfortable.
can use the wall to sit on, basically.
Yeah.
Oh, and what kind of wood are you gonna use?
It's pressure treated beams, which are the same thing they have already. Yeah, it's half a foot by half a foot by 8 feet. Yeah, they're 8 feet beams.
So you'll have to dig them out. Will there be any, how do you secure them back in?
So the way it's gonna be secured is I'm gonna lay gravel down where they will be put in place, and then we're gonna put rebar through all of it to keep it in place, so it doesn't slant inward like it is now. So that'll hold it together, and then we're also gonna have these 1-foot screws, very large screws, which will actually tie the beams together. So it should be very secure.
Who will be overseeing the construction?
We will, but Paul's father is a builder in town, Jeff Scalise, so he actually has come to some of the meetings, and he's got obviously a lot of background building, and actually told us that they weren't properly done. Pam and I did an inspection, and all this water is kind of taking its toll on that space, because it's putting a lot of hydrostatic pressure against that wall, and it's been damaged over the years. I don't remember last time we replaced it. I mean, you don't, for sure. So it's definitely a great project for us in the
It's
town.
probably never been.
I don't think so. I think it's original. Wouldn't be surprised if it was original. It hasn't been done in my time, so that tells you a lot. So.
How long is it gonna take to actually do the?
So the goal basically is 2 to 3 weekends in the fall. So hopefully this next fall, before the ground freezes, so we can actually dig.
Yeah.
It
How are
really
you gonna manage
depends,
the kids who wanna play there at that time? Is it gonna, are we gonna close off that section, or how?
It's probably gonna have to be closed off for those weekends, sadly.
Do
But
we need to alert anything?
I mean, we're gonna put caution tape up and signs, so it should be pretty obvious that it's not something you could really play on.
Yeah. I mean, do we have to
Are you
alert people
suggesting
not
that
to
we
come?
maybe put warning tape around just the project area, or do you actually think we should close the entire park?
Oh, just the project.
Just the project.
Yeah,
It's
you
very
can
small.
use
So
the
the actual playscape still can be used, or are you just gonna
I
not use
mean,
that?
Really?
I would prefer to just close
Not
off this whole
Close off the whole
section.
section.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best in case some sort of.
Yeah, I think
Because you
it'll
might
be
have
fine. I think it'll be
tools
fine.
around
It'll be
and-
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can put a notice on our website, we
I
can
don't know how much it's
email out
used.
to all the, it's used a lot.
It is, because I know if, with Cherry Lawn, it's used a lot, so if we
It
gave
is.
people heads up,
We
and
have
they
a
knew that it was gonna
extensive
happen, they'd
email blast.
redirect where they were going that
I think
weekend.
the only thing is we might want to consider having it before soccer season starts, just because.
Yeah, there's like the brothers and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know when that starts?
Usually in the fall.
It's like the end of
It's
August.
It's end of August,
Yeah.
it's fall.
Okay, yeah, so,
I mean, ideally, it's summertime. is the
yeah,
best
our
time.
goal is to try to do it like mid-September to like mid-October around, that's kind of the goal.
Or the other thing you could consider is November. It's still, the ground is still not frozen, and most likely summer's over. It's not a bad time to do a project.
Is that good timing with your Eagle Scout? Because I know you're on your serious.
Yeah, that's, I'm not.
He's at Rising Junior, so he's
I'm-
got
Oh,
time.
okay, so he's got, right.
Yeah, I'm not worried about
I
time.
think, we just need to negotiate about timing.
Early
Yeah.
November.
That's great.
And we can do that. And if you could do it in the summer, it'd even be better.
Yeah, I mean,
Late, like before
It's-
soccer season.
a lot of it's dependent on volunteers, because this is all being done by volunteers, so if it's in the summer, a lot of people might be on vacation or some sort of situation, so.
Worst case scenario, we get notices out.
Yeah.
And if
Okay.
they it's during soccer,
Yeah.
exactly. People will appreciate the fact that
Yeah.
it's done.
Yes, safe wise.
Okay.
Okay. Excellent.
Thanks.
Nice. Okay.
Then we need
I
to
like your board.
make a motion.
To approve Paul's Eagle Scout project at Beaver Park as described.
All in favor?
Yes.
Good job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very good job. Good job. I know, it's very cold in there.
And you can, I don't know how.
You go arrow up, right?
Okay.
I'll go into arrow up.
Okay, next is, we have been discussing the smoking.
We're gonna get it from Interstate Lumber and Briggs and their team meetings.
Where do you want it? Oh, the dog.
Right, yeah. Sorry, guys, I have so many pieces of paper tonight. Hold on. Smoking.
Oh, you need
No,
this to
I-
send.
no, I've got something else I would rather
Okay, got it.
have you guys pass out. What Pam sent was, I think, just a sample you took from another town's website, which is an ordinance and is much too far overreaching for the authority of the park. So what I did at the top of this is, and I'll just go over this with you, but I put the language there for you, is that under the Darien Code of Ordinances, Article 2 covers the park rules, which talks about adopting rules and regulations, and simply states that the Park and Recreation Commission is authorized to adopt the rules and regulations for the care, management, and control of all parks and parkways owned by the town. And then it further states that any such amendments to the rules and regulations will be effective 30 days following approval by the Parks and Recreation Commission. So we have the full authority to update our park rules document, which I have
Thanks
here
for doing this.
with us, and I would suggest that all of you read, we're going to talk about them more in a few minutes, at your leisure. Just a plethora of information. So looking through the rules, and I'm going to talk about this later because I think the rules need to be freshened up, but I would suggest adding it to the section of our rules, which is section 42-R29, miscellaneous regulations, and add it as item H and relettering the current letter H to I, because this section covers beverages, dogs, games of chance, going onto the ice, offensive conduct, selling, and handbills. So it kind of seemed to fit in kind of all the things you can't do when you're in the park. So it seemed to be going through this the best place. I believe the simplest language would be what I have in bold here, but feel free to wordsmith this. But just to add, so no person shall use, carry, or smoke a lighted cigarette, cigar, or pipe, any type of e-cigarette or vaporizer, one online, there's slight differences, or other smoking material. Pretty straight forward.
At beaches and parks, or where do we decide?
Well, these are the park rules, so
Okay, so is
it
it
would affect all the parks.
all the parks? Okay.
Yeah, because they're the park rules.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, and that section covers all of the parks.
Excellent.
So I don't think we need to get any fancier than that. We don't need an ordinance, it's a park rule, which the town ordinance allows us to apply in the parks. And also under our rules in the ordinance, it talks about the police, having the authority to enforce our rules. So,
And I've had the conversation with the chief already. And basically when you say, Pam was asked to come back with suggestions on how to implement.
right.
I think that, signs have to be done. The chief is, going to bring that to the commission. He has no problem managing that once the signs are in place. And we have, I think, and we have, as I said, we have a very deep email base. We have our website, we've been driving people to the website. I think we can do a real good job getting the information out there. You can have a Darien Times write up an article and go from there.
But under the town ordinance, it specifically states that any rules change we make are effective 30 days after we go. So effectively, by ordinance, this should be effective in 30 days. So that's just the way it is.
Right.
You can't say we want to do it 3 months or whatever, it's 30 days.
If you pass the day, 30 days.
Correct.
Got it.
Right. You can't mess with the ordinance, right?
You can do it faster.
Yeah. So does anybody have any thoughts, or does this language think okay, or? Yes, good. I know there was some suggestion about whether include marijuana in there, but there's other places I found in here which specifically basically says you can't do anything that's illegal, and it is not currently legal in the state of Connecticut.
It's smoking material, isn't it?
It is smoking material, but it's only one to be prickly, but I think we're covered elsewhere. I did go through this. I think we're elsewhere otherwise covered, so.
I think timing wise, for me, I wouldn't want to say yes today and have to be ready in 30 days.
We have to be under the ordinance.
Right,
Well-
but if you vote today, it's 30 days, but if you wait
Right.
until next month, then perhaps that
Are
would
you
save.
worried about
the-
signage? Is that what your worry is?
Talking about this.
What is,
I know.
what's the
But-
impulse, what's your concern?
I think it's,
I have a lot on my plate right now in terms of budgeting, I'm trying to do transfers,
And then you have to get a sign up at every single park?
That's a lot.
there's nothing that says we have to.
No, we don't have to have signs up.
Oh, you don't have to have
No,
signs?
I-
Oh, I thought there
No,
were.
I would
I've got
have
signs.
In
signs.
fact, you can throw it on the website and we can do it.
I would put it on the website and then we can do signs.
because the police can't manage anything without signage.
Well,
So,
Well, do your best. You know what, I think we should do it because,
Okay.
you know, no time like the present.
How are we gonna let people know about it?
Okay.
We
And
get
especially
something
during high
going.
beach season, for people to have to deal with people smoking on the beach would be really tough.
well, not getting no smoking signs isn't really a big deal, they're pretty standard.
Okay, so
So-
be sure, it's just the idea.
I'll get it done.
But I think we also want to talk about the signage because I don't really want to clutter up all of our local
Yeah,
parks with
I
lots of
agree,
those
like no dogs, no
signs.
signs.
So why don't I bring you back a sample sign at next meeting?
Sounds great.
But
But do
you
you
will
want to
say,
say,
you know,
Yeah, it's fine.
Approve it for today?
I think we've been talking about this for 4 months
Yeah,
now,
let's
I'm
do it.
tired of talking about
Me
it.
too.
We're either doing it or we're not.
We are.
All right, I'm dropping it. I'm done.
Sorry, we're doing it.
Okay.
Well, we're taking a vote.
Other than the signs, how we can communicate this to people?
I have the website, email blast, I have,
Newspaper article.
So effective
Newspaper
on X
article,
date,
not
30 days
effective,
ahead.
yes.
Yeah.
You'll put out a big blast to everyone.
Can you do that? Is it, or are you crunched for time?
No.
You can do that.
Jim will handle it.
Yeah, no, I know you've got a lot on your plate.
Sounds good.
I just think we have to think about signage too, because there's nothing worse than you're coming down,
I
the
agree.
park, have a fun day, and it's no this, no, I mean, no, it's just like,
We should have
okay.
one big sign that has
Well, there's not too many signs that we can.
No, I know, what I'm saying, I just don't want to clutter
Or
up
pear tree.
with lots of signs. Okay, so if everybody finds the language that I sort of put together acceptable to add to the rules, then I would accept a motion. Susan? Was that it? Amy? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay. We will have to update the rules and have to post it in a couple places.
Okay.
We're up to updates on parks improvement, but I think we really kind of hit most of these this evening. We talked about Diller, there's really nothing else to say that we haven't covered in the meeting, so I think we can jump over that. The brief update on Highland Farms, which is not a park, but Pam and I have been, Pam very involved, I somewhat involved.
I have a meeting on Tuesday with Jamie, Kate Bush, and Ed Gentile about the approved appropriations and how that timeline is going to be moving forward. So I can update in July.
Okay. But I think the headline is that the funding for the project to develop the parking lots and the walking path and the shed for the lawnmower was approved at the last RTM meeting. Okay, so that's the headline there. And Pam and her staff will be charged with working on that to get that done, and then I'm sure we'll be talking at future dates when Jamie and company will be getting involved in developing fabulous events.
I know, what do you, comments?
What's your update on Cherry Lawn?
Cherry Lawn, the Global Motion is being installed on Friday. So this Friday they're doing the excavating.
What time on
And-
Friday?
There's like a huge play date happening there.
Oh, is there?
That's
Yeah.
good for mocks.
I
Maybe
believe
from
10 a.m.
Prime time, right?
Oh, boy.
I know, it's usually prime time.
Relocation.
Yeah, I might relocate.
We beach.
But this is in the
This is
older kids
the
section.
older kids one,
Not
right,
really.
right, but there will be siblings.
Yeah.
Is that where doing meeting is going to be? Just like a huge play with 120 moms.
That's what they do when school's out, they find things
Yeah.
to do for their kids, so this is one of the things.
We'll
that they-
relocate.
I think it's a great idea. We beach is great. My grandma's house.
Yeah.
Can't
I can
recommend
put
it.
a blast out about that too.
Good idea.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you write that down?
And now you can give advance.
That sounds fun.
Okay, that's volunteers.
Thank you.
Okay, and the update on Pear Tree, Mike, he's still there?
He must be still engaged.
Yeah,
Okay.
he said it wasn't going to make it, it was late.
Okay, so the Pear Tree Building Committee was meeting this evening. They've been meeting every 2 weeks. Pam and I were there for the first hour and 15 minutes of the meeting. Neil Hawk did come to the committee with a little model of a sort of scaled down renovation to the bathhouse, scaled down from what was presented, I believe, 2 weeks ago, which there was feedback that it was too large. That's really as far as we got in the meeting. We definitely have had, neighbor feedback concerned about, the size of a potential development project. So we're taking that all in and working, but that's kind of where we left. And did you make the whole meeting?
Significantly evolved was that Neil was asked to come back with a bit of a rendering of what it would look like if we did not do anything to those two buildings and what some decking could look like.
Okay. So the committee, they're working they said they're meeting every 2 weeks, so.
So when do you think we're going to get some idea of what they're thinking about? Like that's probably next meeting?
Part of the process, and they're just continuing to make some changes, and now they're going to come up with another alternative, and, I think they're probably going to go through some.
Yeah, I didn't think.
Well, they kind of, because I just remember for Wheat Beach, we did come back when we made, had some ideas on the table, just to let people know what we were thinking about. Because I think that if there are anything like dramatic and any public comment that we're getting, because we're getting public comment from these designs, we should be seeing them and having them in front of us.
Well, they're all posted.
Online.
They're posted on the website.
Okay.
So the plans that Lori just spoke about are on the website from June 5th. And the original plans, they first started with the bubble sketches.
Yes.
Those were online as well.
I think Susan said maybe we should have a touch point.
We should.
If not at the next meeting, maybe the
Yeah, whatever our next meeting, something soon.
July,
because
August gets a little
if we're getting
tricky.
all of these letters and we're not speaking to Neil and maybe going back to him and saying, hey, we're getting these letters and there's a lot of concern about the sizes. Let's talk to you. You should talk to us about it. Because if we need to make a change or like redirect, we might have to be a part of that.
Sure.
Those are like that.
Okay.
And I know we did it for you. It was much easier to deal with the public then. For you, and then you're not. The Pear Tree Committee is not the only people that are getting all of the.
Right.
And we can help react and deal with public too. So,
Good idea.
yes.
Yeah, there certainly is a lot of fervor around this project.
Right now, all of a sudden,
Yeah.
new proposals.
Yeah, and my emails next door are coming in, it's all over next door.
Can I just say about that? Tonight we saw a different version of the renovated bathhouse and concession area building. And our next meeting is not going to be July 3rd. So we're going to poll everybody and find out, because you had left. So we'll poll everybody and find out when our July meeting is. I think that maybe you should wait until after our July meeting, when we have one more meeting with Neil to nail this down a little bit more. We asked him to go back and give us a concept of not building the second story, let's put it that way, and just do the outside decking on the first story, on the building that's there now, doing a deck around so that people would have a place to sit and have the concession stand or not have the concession stand and have food trucks. So he's going to come back at our July meeting and with some kind of a concept for that. So I know everybody's getting these emails and on Nextdoor and everything. I mean, we're all getting them also. And it is in a way helpful and it is a lot to read, but everybody, this is a community project, so we have to. So I'm just asking, maybe in your August, well, you don't meet in August, right?
No, we don't meet in August.
So it's on our calendar.
Are you going to? Yeah, we always have on the calendar.
Okay. Well, then maybe.
Well, what is your
maybe
next
August
meeting? Charlotte, you're saying?
We're gonna, Mike's gonna poll everybody.
Because our next meeting is July 17th.
Yeah, well, we were gonna try not to have the meetings on the same night as the commission meetings.
Yeah, we try not to. We alternate hours too.
Yeah,
So
I'm gonna wait for them to get back to us. So we didn't set anything up tonight because you guys weren't there
I
and
know they talked about July 2nd, and I had found.
There's a bit of pushback about the week of July 4th. So that's as far as we got.
Yeah.
We stopped.
Okay.
Yeah,
Keep it, but just, that's the sentiment, you know what we're saying.
Yeah.
So it's not just about, us needing to know every little bit, but when there's a lot of public that's coming back to us.
Yeah, we need to be
And if
aware,
we're changing
right?
direction because of that public comment, it would be nice to know, like,
Right.
that you're doing that and how that's, we need to come in and, worry about you guys going too far this way and we're not accomplishing what we set out to do as a commission. Right. So that's
well,
really.
we're staying pretty much true to our objectives, your objectives to us. I think we're staying pretty true to it.
So we do have an August meeting in the calendar, and I'm reluctant to cancel it. I know it can be very tricky, but as you see this evening, there is so much going on right now.
What is, do you happen to remember what the day is?
Not off the top of
Is it the
my
14th?
head.
July 17th, you
No,
know, next
on
week?
August.
August, I have it.
Is it, or the 21st?
It is the 21st.
So I think once we get through the July meeting and see where we are and things are within concluded, the August meeting, I'd be at that meeting will work, whether there's a more suitable time, but then we have to be a special meeting.
Which is fine too. Special meetings might be early in August, might work better.
Okay, public comment, any residents in attendance who would like to speak?
Good question. Just as me, a grandmother, going to Cherry Lawn Park and enjoying the toddler playground. Can't you get some more sand there?
More sand? For the sand, for the entire surface or the sand area, like a sand pit?
The sand area, and it's in the middle where it's underneath the play things.
Playscape, yeah, I can actually, I'll
Just have a look and see if it needs it, or if the kids have just redistributed it.
We're
All you need to do is level it, I don't know.
I actually have a playground, our insurance carrier is doing a playground check on our playgrounds next week. So when we're there.
That's right.
Yeah, so.
The insect?
Yeah.
And my other question is about those gates. Is it as a constant thing that they have to keep fixing them?
At Cherry Lawn?
Yeah,
Like
in that
fix the toddler
Tyler playground, yeah. But is it, sometimes some of them don't work or close properly.
Okay.
So have a look. They're jolly and heavy,
Okay.
but.
Okay, I'll have them check this perfect timing. Yeah.
Do we have any other public comments? Do we do if we have somebody to arrive? Yes.
I was wondering if there were any open problems just anywhere that needed help solving, because I'm a Life Scout and I was wondering if there were any projects that I could possibly work on to help fix.
I could speak to you about them if you would like. I'm the Eagle Project Coordinator for Parks and Rec. So if you want to talk to me offline, we could talk. And a good place to start would be the master plan that we've just developed. Just look there and see if there's anything that kind of catches your eye, and any park or beach that you feel an affinity to. That's where I would really count to. But obviously, we do have Eagle projects that come before us, but we do have a limit. So if you do think of something, you have to get to us early so we just can't have unlimited projects, because you can hear Pam's very busy. So, but feel free, I'm Susan Daly, and I'm on the website. If you want to talk after the meeting, I'll give you my contact.
But the park master plan is a personal hard copy, so I cannot give it to you.
Yeah, it's like big.
But it is also on the website. I think there are public copies in the Parks and Rec offices.
It's online though, isn't it?
No, I said it's online, but
You can come by our office and sit in our office and flip through it if you want
Take
hard
the
copy.
copies of
Take it.
specific areas.
Right, but that would give you ideas of the different parks and things we've identified. There's more in here that we can accomplish probably in the next decade, so in some ways it is a wish list.
You'll have lots of projects you can think of.
Yeah. The other thing I would suggest is reaching out to some of the Friends groups that help support our parks and do, like the Friends of
Woodland,
Woodland and Selleck's Woods were here last month talking about the maintenance work they do at Selleck's Woods, so there would be other good groups to speak to as well.
Great.
Thank you for asking. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right. I don't think there's much else to touch on other than, we Beach Fest was June 1st, right? So we haven't really talked about that because our last meeting was May. So,
Yes.
yeah, it was an incredible day. The weather was perfect. Right. All the things that we did to coordinate the day. You know, obviously to hold any type of event, there's things that happen, but I think Jamie did a fantastic job trying to put out little fires here and there where necessary in terms of setting it all up, getting ready and open by, you know, we really opened the gate at 12, right? And, you know, it was great. We had, again, we haven't solved figuring out the absolute attendance. You know, next year we really want to get a handle on that.
Will the police tell you? Because they usually estimate for us.
No, we have shuttles that are constantly filled and being dropped off, then people leaving.
Yeah, he's very good about it. I was going to say, he used to do push and pull all the
But
time
it's
for us.
pretty, you know, we would like to get a better concrete number if we can.
Yeah, you probably have.
So we said 1,500
Yeah, that's
people.
right back there.
And,
That's up from last year.
Well,
yeah, no, it was half and half. So we've never had a perfect weather day until this year.
So how many did we have the year, how many did we guess?
We said 1,200 last year, believe it or not, and it was shorter time.
Yeah.
Now it was 7 hours as opposed to 5 hours, so we increased that time, and it was great.
Were the vendors happy? Did they?
Yes,
do a nice business?
it's like an ongoing joke when vendors call interested in stuff. It's the only event where everyone, every year so far, has been pleased with
Oh, great.
their traffic.
Great.
Yeah, I think it's just the way we are able to set it up. I mean, we literally are pushing everyone in. So
the pavilion,
everyone
yeah.
is getting some sort of traffic in one area for one reason or another. So it's very vendor friendly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and thank you for those that did show up to see it. It's great. It's always good to, you know, Mike came and cooked, Lori was there, Mary Foote actually worked the front desk too. And, you know, it's just, it's a feel-good day, you know. I think people are just, they're really happy and people, it seemed to be 2 shifts. There seemed to be a lunch shift. And then I saw parents going, no, we're going home. You know, while the second
nap
time. Yeah, so it was interesting. And they wanted to stay and they wanted to go, and you know, but then it filled right back up again for the dinner crowd. So we were all out of there by probably 9 at night.
Better than last year.
Jamie was probably on site at 7 a.m. I was on site at 9 a.m. So it's a long day.
Did you do the bouncy thing?
We didn't, no. We had,
Those
if you don't know about that, the Darien Foundation sponsored for $3,000, and they sponsored the children's section to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of Playground by the Sound.
Yeah, that was
So,
great. They did t-shirts, they gave out t-shirts. and
Jamie, if you want to speak to the sponsorship too, so you can give them.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that was, I worked directly with Sarah Woodbury on it, and she was absolutely amazing. And, yeah, they not only sponsored it, they wished for it to be completely free, so we were enabled to do that for the first time. It's never been free before, so any kid who wanted to come and participate could. They handed out free t-shirts to all the kids. We did free wristbands. We did, for the birthday of the playground, we did birthday cake decorating through our cooking instructor. She provided all the cakes for it, and it was like an incredible hit. There was a sign-up sheet that was done within minutes, and it was, I don't know, it was just a really cool scene over there for everybody.
Very long line face painting. And we had all individual games set up on the beach, and you know, it keeps evolving. I think next year we'll take bits and pieces of it that we feel can be done better.
And it was very cool because after our staff discussions post-event, we determined that we were comfortable publicly saying we had 500 kids. And today I had a conversation with the 2 women from the selectman's office that were checking the kids in, and they said they felt comfortable saying we had at least 600. So that was really cool to hear that they felt it was an even larger number than we had. Yeah, so it's a hefty amount. So-
Good for you.
I know.
No,
Sorry.
no bug squishing.
No bug squishing.
Yeah.
Oh, Julia would be
One of
horrified.
If he's coming on my life, let's make some
Oh, gosh.
And a constant line at the tie-dye, and a shout out to
Yes.
Jen.
Yeah.
Well, and Patty is known as the tie-dye lady at this point.
Last year we did t-shirts, and this year Jamie had backpacks
Oh.
and t-shirts. And I wasn't sure which way it was gonna go, if more people wanted
Pillowcases.
t-shirts, pillowcases, I'm sorry. But they loved the pillowcases and the backpacks, so that was a nice mix-up.
It was fun, it was a little different, you know, well, thank you that she volunteered almost the entire time doing it, so.
Yes, thank you.
It's a messy station.
And the only other thing that I'll report on is that our next event is the July fireworks event. We did make a decision, Jamie and I, and with the help of Bobby Bush, that we are switching fireworks company this year. Yes, we're going with Pyrotechnico based on the bid that came in. They had more shots being fired with bigger shells, only $500 more than the other company. And we did our homework, and our background checks and references were outstanding. And it came with a choice of a soundtrack, which is new than the other company didn't do. And the music was chosen. I can see by who. And
I keep telling everyone that I picked the music, so I hope everyone likes it.
You volunteered that information. I was going to be quiet. So yes, the 22 soundtracks. Then they're going to the company itself. Then designs the choices to the show. We have the community band, and we have a Leaf Jumpers, which is another band.
They're alternative hits from 90s to today. We've heard them play before. I just think they're really cool, and they're kind of different. We haven't really heard that from all these showcases we go to and hear the different bands play. They were so different from the other ones, so I think they're going to be really cool.
Yeah, and that's new. That's new to the event. So
What time is it?
it's a Saturday night with a rain date on Sunday, July 6th and or 7th.
Because it's on Thursday this year, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So and we'll
Just by
probably.
the week.
We have plenty of leftover lemonade, so Jamie and I will be selling lemonade.
Oh, you do?
We'll be selling our lemonade stock at our own little lemonade stand. Gotta do it.
I have a big star.
Better than
from
stores.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a big star from lemon.
Oh, do you want me to wear that? Yeah.
No, you hold it up.
There you go, that's a good idea.
That's all I'm gonna report on.
Okay, we'll bring us home. There's been, as you can all hear tonight, there's been a lot of activity. Pam's been working tirelessly.
Yes.
I know you were on vacation for a week, I'm sure you don't remember. These projects, as I'm learning, take an enormous amount of effort and approvals. I've been to 3 selectmen's meetings, 2 planning and zoning meetings, Pear Tree Building Committee meetings, meeting for the funding of Highland Farms. You know, it's just the steps that have to be gone through to get every one of these projects approved is crazy. I also attended the Harbor Commission meeting this week because of an ex officio member. They mentioned that they are very interested in particular in the Pear Tree Building project and being informed about what's going on in that with specific and very particular interest about the boat ramp and how that's handled. The members of the Harbor Commission are all, you can just tell they're all very seasoned and experienced seamen. They know the waters around Darien extremely, extremely well. It's very impressive what they know. And one of the things that they mentioned in passing with the boat ramp is that if it requires dredging, that some of the areas that are approved for depositing the dredge material may be shut down, the ones closest, and that if we were to dredge and have to haul that material to the far eastern end of Longmont Sound, it would be much more expensive. So they were even querying if that part of the project could be maybe prioritized a little bit as opposed to fussing with the building pitch of the roof. So I haven't had a chance to talk to Mike and Randy about that.
We haven't hit that section yet.
No, I know, but what they're kind of saying is, there could be real costs to the town. You might want to think about that sooner than later, or almost carve it out as an independent project. I don't know if that's doable or not, and getting the funding might be an issue, but they did want to raise that, and I did want to communicate that back.
Wasn't there a dredging project that was supposed to happen there? Like a boat club?
Yes.
Maybe it was a boat
Yes.
club. It was supposed to, yeah, around that whole area.
Yeah.
But then obviously,
He hasn't come back.
yeah, it was a huge thing that they
Yeah, it
did
was
with
a
us.
big deal.
So I don't know, but anyways, I did want to just mention that.
Time goes on that.
So Wheat Beach Fest was fantastic. I could definitely say as a resident of near Water Lane that it was not intrusive in terms of traffic at all. You know, some buses kind of went up and down during the day with the people on it, but there, you know, it wasn't like, you know, I couldn't get on and off the street. It wasn't like it was bumper to bumper in front of my house. It was just sort of like any other Saturday. It really was not. It's not an issue, so sort of I just want to publicly say, as a, you know, as a resident near one of the parks, you can have events, and I don't know if your experience was any different, but that's just
Any other day.
it was like any other day.
Awesome.
Yeah, it really was not a problem at all. Also attended the Trails Discovery Day at Selleck's Wood, which was fantastic. I was there with Miss Riley Bora, age 4, for over 3 hours, and it was, here, I'll tell you that, it was
Oh, you went to that?
really, Jamie, you did a great job. The participation with the Boy Scouts and the whole adventure lane, it was really, nature centers with it. It was such a great event. I really thought we'd be in and out in like 45 minutes.
And Chris really wants to stay partnering with Parks and Rec. I mean, it is one of our parks.
Yeah, it was such a great event. It was just really blown away how
It's just too bad it's that close to Wheat Beach.
Yeah, but it was a beautiful day. It was really well attended. It was just,
It's like 140 families.
Oh, I bet it was more than that.
That's how many people like physically signed in, so that's like we can confirm
It was more than
140.
that. It was really busy. And there was some good face paint.
Did you get it?
We turned into a unicorn. That's very cute. I handed out, I know some of you weren't here, but the calendar, if anybody had a chance to look at it, we're going to try to get this calendar updated. I have a few extra copies for people who weren't here, but at some point we do kind of want to finalize, pass these for people who weren't there. If anybody had any additions to it or things you thought we should add, just because the idea is to have sort of a working calendar for the commission so we don't forget them. So Pam and I will work on that a little bit more when she and I come up with a bit of air. The other thing, and I alluded to this earlier, is I really think that the parks rules and regulations need a refresh. There's nothing wrong with them, but
Want to clean it up?
yeah, they need to be cleaned up. I see this at work, you have policies and procedures, and something comes up and you add something here, and you add something here, and you add something there. Before you make it, I've noticed there's things in kind of multiple places, some formatting cleaned up or whatever. So I'm hoping to get I think even 2 volunteers to work with me to just go through and do sort of a red line cleanup of it. I did check with town council through Kate. It would be considered a committee, so we would have to have a set meeting schedule and a public notice. I can't imagine anybody would want to sit and talk about people rewriting the parks rules. But it has to be at least a notice warrant meeting. So either tell me after the meeting tonight or shoot me an email, just a couple people if you'd be willing to go. They don't need major work, they really don't, but I just definitely noticed a few little things. I think we do need to add something referencing the friends groups and how we interface with them. Really should be in the rules in terms of, who's allowed to do projects on our parcels. The dogs on Wheat Beach that we allow actually violates the rules right now. So there's just a handful of things that really need to be cleaned up. And then I think annually we should just have a standing agenda item that we review the rules to make sure that they're current. So a couple of people can work with me on that. That would be great. And that's pretty much it. Like I said, we're going to be really busy. So just ask everybody to keep up to speed. If you can't make meetings, please watch them on the 79 or whatever. Just so you have a sense of what's happening.
And I will reiterate, it would be really helpful just to really try to just a quick email back when I send the agendas and materials, just a quick back return that you will or will not be in attendance. Because what happens, we come boiling down, we have this big long agenda and we're saying, will we have a quorum or not? Right. On the day of, and then we're trying to chase people. So just try to click that return and reply back would be helpful.
That's all I've got.
So I thought, yes, ma'am.
I'm really sorry, I should have said this, when we were talking about the fireworks. Even though Parks and Rec has completely taken that event over, David Genovese has personally still been helping us get sponsorship for the event. He was kind of heading that in the past couple of years, and he's just kept ownership of it, and I mean, we wouldn't have the event without his help bringing in those businesses, so that I'm not going right back out to the same places after we Beach Fest and things of that nature. So it's just, we are so appreciative of his support.
Good public shout out to Dave.
Yeah,
Very much.
I just have a couple of things I just want to follow up on. Can you give me an update on the geese at Tilly Pond and how it's working?
So the geese at Tilly Pond, yes, we have heard that they have had babies and they're coming back. And so I did reach out to some colleagues, one of which has used a product called the Denier. We did purchase it. I know that Jim was considering getting it in the pond. There's two of them. They're like LED flashing lights at night. They're not going to be disruptive to people, but apparently the geese, it disrupts their sleep. They like to stay in the water at night. It disrupts them, and because it's not the perfect timing of, usually we should have hit this early spring, had I known.
Yeah.
But he said that it will just take a little longer. But we've also coupled that with purchasing 8 swan decoys that will be in the water.
Oh God, I just had visions of those
from a neighbor,
It's just a decoy.
not a
Yeah.
neighbor, from a colleague, Bill Denea, who is very, very highly respected in our community, in our profession. They have worked extremely well for him. I'm sorry, backwards. He had a Denier. There's another director who uses swans. He said people, they look so real that people go up and start taking pictures of them.
Oh,
So we shall see. We got two
flamingos there.
So I told the
Okay,
town
good.
that
So you're all over it.
that I would make an effort to try different things before just running back to spending lots of money. And so let's give this a try. And so we have to live through a couple more months of,
Good, thanks for
You're welcome.
How about the lights at the gazebo at Cherry Lawn? Did you reach out to the neighbors? Because the gazebo actually backs, it's on the pond and then it backs up to a bunch of neighbors on that street.
I did not, and I haven't done anything with that yet, other than get estimates about that. So certainly through this commission, it was supportive and approved the capital project for lights at the gazebo and the aerator in the pond. So other than that, we got the approval through this level. So I wouldn't have thought of anything different.
Yeah, I just
Don't want lights, or that they don't want
Well,
lights?
I
because
just
they
think on that
are
side of
bothers?
the park, it actually is when the leaves come down, there's that wood, it's not a very deep wood barrier there. So I just wanted to be sensitive to them.
It wouldn't be, in my opinion, it would not be something that is going to be on every single day. It would be
it's just for events?
Purpose. It would give us an opportunity to have a small band there or something, or gathering, and have the ability to have something on the gazebo.
Okay, so it's just for events.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not lights for, that turn on at dawn and turn off at 10 o'clock at night.
Okay, all right, good to know. And then the last thing was I was thinking about our kayak racks in terms of the Eagle Scout project, because I know that we had said that those were very popular.
Yes, we had 2 more built.
Oh, we did? Okay,
So
so
we each
do
now
we have
them,
enough?
and they're filled, everything's filled.
Okay, so we don't need any more. That's fantastic.
We have room for more.
That's the question.
We have, they're all
we
sold
need
out.
more, but the question is, do we have room?
We do have room at Weed Beach. We have no more room at Pear Tree. Pear Tree's done, but Weed Beach does have but again, I would
wait on Weed Beach
I would
until
wait.
we know what we're doing with.
Oh, I would too, absolutely.
Because that's
But
where they are, they're in that direction.
we offered it, our parks crew went out, got the materials, built them, and they filled within a couple days.
Oh, so we built them, it wasn't.
Our parks department. No,
Yes.
the Eagle Scout did one.
And then
We built
we did
3. We built an additional 1 at Pear Tree and 2 for Weed Beach as a winter project.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they sold out.
sold out, $15,000.
Well, I think that, obviously you got that all covered. I just thought
I just
I'd
think
raise
there
it
might be
as.
more potential on the other side of the beach too, like if we have small boat storage, so I just want this to work itself out, this
Yes.
collaboration in this committee before we put too much in that area.
And they're movable right now, so.
Yeah, they're movable, I'm not worried.
We're good.
They're a great revenue source.
Huge,
They're excellent.
huge.
Good, it's great.
Okay, it's 9:30.
Yes.
Thanks for
Motion, Sarah, Pierre, all,